listeners, to another interesting episode on the BizBlend podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and this is the podcast where business insight meets human depth. In this episode, we are diving into a truly integrative conversation today, one that goes beyond metrics and marketing. And listeners, uh, please meet my guest, Dr. Dorothy Martin-Neville. Dr. Dorothy, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much.
So, listeners, let me share a bit about Dr. Dorothy with all of you. She's a clinical psychologist, a pioneer in complementary healthcare in the US, an author of Spiritual First Aid for Emotional Hurts. Now, with over 4 decades of experience, she brings a rare fusion of business acumen, psycho spiritual insight, and mind body healing. So, in this episode of BizBlend, we'll be exploring how mental health isn't just a personal issue, it is a leadership imperative, a team dynamic, and yes, it is a business strategy. So, whether you are building a culture, recovering from burnout, or simply curious about the deeper causes of workplace stress and illness, this is an episode you won't want to miss. So, with that, Dr. Dorothy, you have been a pioneer in blending psychology with complementary healthcare. I mean, since the early 1980s. So, how have you seen the intersection between business and mental health evolve over the decades?
What I've seen is an acceptance that there is a connection evolving over the decades. Years ago, there was a belief that mental health was really about pathology. If you were schizophrenic, if you were manic depressive, if you had some severe a psychiatric disorder, then your mental health wasn't good. Other than that, everything was just life. That life, you're depressed, that's life. You're extremely anxious, that's life. You're obsessive compulsive, that's life. And so there wasn't a recognition of how important it is to be at peace, to
Mm.
be out from under stress, out from under depression, to be able to function, the importance of creativity, the importance of balance has become something that certainly isn't universally accepted, but is much more accepted than it ever was. That we truly need to look at living a life that the more balanced we are, the more at peace we are, the more creative we get to be. Because creativity is limited when we're under acute stress.
Mm. That definitely makes sense. I think many businesses they do offer now um, mindfulness or therapy options, stipends. But um, do you think, Dr. Dorothy, are those truly integrated or they're still like performative?
In what sense? I think that the more integrated we are in understanding that every one of us has a purpose here. Every one of us has something that defined that we are came here to do, that we are walking this planet to do. When we can acknowledge that, we start looking at not doing a job because we need a job. We start looking at what is it that causes me to wake up feeling passionate about something? What is it that causes me to wake up really excited about what I'm going to do today, about the transitions I'm making, about the shifts in my culture that I'm making or in my business or whatever it may be. Uh,
Mm.
when we are doing a job, we are in discipline, we are coming from will, we are coming from um, obligation. It's much more intellectual.
Okay.
When we are doing something that allows us to feel really good about who we are in our own skin, we do things from a very different place. We
Mm.
we really because our heart and our soul or our essence, whatever, is invested in it, we approach it from a way that allows us to be truly present. And think about some things you've done with your life personally. There are some things you've done that just let you know you were in the right place at the right time doing the right thing.
Mm.
And there are other things you've done that you know were appropriate or expected. They feel completely different.
Yes.
And the ones that were simply expected, you did it, you may have done it beautifully, very well. But the ones that you did because it made you feel so much more of who you really are, your creativity, your generosity, your compassion, your expansion, this much larger energetic footprint showed up. And I think that we're all called to find what is it that brings that larger energetic footprint up for us? What is it that
Mm.
calls me to take more risks than I would normally take? What is it that calls me to jump into something and really fly at it? And it's just so different. And I think that it's being recognized now that that isn't just some imaginary, childlike thought of just do what feeds you. That's not what I'm talking about. In the
Mm.
world right now, there is so much need. There is so much in business. There is so much need in social services. There is so much need in humanity. And some people, they can get involved in farming and in creating a
Mm.
massive farm that feeds many other farms. Some of us train the trainers, if you will. Some farmers just have their farm and they sell their products. Some farms are so expert at what they're doing, they're training other farmers in what to do, right? So each one of us is called to something different. Each one of us does it differently. And if you're somebody who's here to train others how to do their business, you have to take ownership in that. That's your leadership. That's what you're called to do. And that's also what excites you. Whereas for somebody else to have that responsibility, it would be a horrific amount of burden, a horrific amount of responsibility. And not that they couldn't do it, but the price they would pay is huge. Their physical health suffers and everything else suffers. So it really comes down to, are we willing to take the time to discover what we're really called to do? And are we willing to develop the skill sets needed to do it well, to do it effectively, and to make a big difference in the world?
Mm. No, that absolutely makes sense, Doctor. You you know connected with this, you talk about the psycho spiritual causality of physical disease.
Correct.
Um, so in high stress business environment, what are the subtle signs leaders often miss that may signal deeper psychological or spiritual dis-ease?
What I would suggest is that we are far more aware than we want to be sometimes. We notice that our body just doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel an alignment. Something is not right. And what we tend to do then is become busier so we don't notice. We can work harder at something or to keep ourselves distracted from having to deal with what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. I think if we to me, the value of meditation or prayer or mindfulness, I don't care what it's called, reflection, whatever it is for somebody's bait system. When we take the time to stop, we take the time to be present to ourselves.
Yeah.
We begin to recognize that I don't feel right in my body. Something doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is, but something doesn't feel right. When we take the time to listen to that, to notice that, and to deal with it in the immediacy, we get to see that every disease and disorder that takes place in our body does so at a time of high stress.
Mm.
So if we notice that this is out of balance and we stop to notice it's out of balance, what ends up happening is not only are we looking at what's going on in our body, we're
Mm.
also looking at what's going on in my life that's causing my body to be out of balance. And we're walking through life far more conscious, far more aware, and where we may have been able to ignore the stress we're under. We may be able to have ignored that we're being called by the universe, if you will, to make some
Mhm.
decisions that we don't want to make. If we start recognizing I'm not feeling good, we also have to realize what's going on that's helping me feel this way. And we end up really being in a relationship, which sounds odd if that's not your orientation at the moment, but we end up being in a relationship with our body that we learn to hear what it has to say. We learn to recognize that there's something that's not working, it's something that's not right. And we start to deal with it. And we start to allow our body to govern how much we push, to govern how much we keep going, to make things work and stop
Mm.
coming from a place of will that and I'm not for a moment saying don't be strong-willed. What I'm saying is that when we just come from a place of push, we end up paying a very high price.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. And specifically, I just want to stress on burnout. I often see burnout treated, let's say, with time off, or some kind of work life balance discussions, but not from a deeper, like a systemic or a spiritual one. So how do you suggest, Dr. Dorothy, leaders can reframe this, especially if we talk about burnout?
Burnout, you could take 12 years off and it's not going to help you if you don't look at what's really going on. When you are burnt out, it's because you have been working from a place of forcing yourself to do what you really are not prepared to do, forcing yourself to do what other people's expectations are of you. When you move into a very different place, and there are certainly times when you're in a big family and somebody is ill and you really don't want to spend time to go to the hospital. You really don't want to spend time to take them to see the doctor. And yet you have to decide at that point in time, I've got so much more to do at the office, but I also want to take them in. Then you can just enforce go, okay, God, I'll take them in, get that over with, get back. I could go to the thing. And you're in this angst the whole time. Or you sit and you make a decision. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work an extra hour tonight to make up for the time I need to take to truly be with somebody I want to take into the hospital.
Mm.
And so now you've made a decision that I feel pressure taking time away when I've got so much to do. But let me step back a moment because I can feel the pressure in me. And no matter which choice I make, it's going to feel like the wrong choice. And we live our lives, some people, with always making the wrong choice. No matter what choice we make, it's the wrong one. What instead if we found a way to make two right choices? That I will work an extra hour when I get back, but I'm not going to feel good about me if I don't take her into the hospital. I'm not going to feel good about me if I'm not nurturing and compassionate at this moment. And then what I will do to support me, I will work later to take the pressure off of me about my work that's falling behind. Now we've been forced to stop and recognize what's even more important than helping others is if I don't take care of me, of my health, of
Mhm.
mindset, of the stress in my body, because that stress in my body creates dis-ease, an unhealthy spiritual belief. that I can never win. I'm never going to get this right. No matter what I do is wrong. That's a spiritual belief that
Yeah.
creates emotional dis-ease, which creates energetic dis-ease and physiological dis-ease. So if I can stop and say, wait a minute, let me find a way where everybody wins. It's not the best solution. The best solution is nobody's ill and I can just do my work. But right now, that's not an option. So considering what is, what's my best solution in which everybody wins? I win because I'm taking this person to the doctors or to the hospital. They win because they don't have to go alone. I also win because I'm going to be working later today, so I feel comfortable about that, that now my life is in balance again. And now you go at peace to the doctors or to the hospital, and then at peace bringing that person home, then at peace going back to work and doing what needs to be done. And obviously, this is just an example. But it's recognizing that too often I see people putting themselves in positions where no matter what choice they make, they're going to feel that it's the wrong one. There's no way that supports your emotional health. There's no way that supports your physical health.
Mm, yeah. And Dr. Dorothy, from your experience, and this is something very critical, not very much discussed, especially in the professional settings. When we talk about unresolved emotional hurts, how do they show up in team dynamics or leadership behavior or even organizational stagnation?
My goodness. When you haven't dealt with an
Mhm.
emotional hurt, say from childhood, you're living in defense. And when
Mm,
you live in defense, it's let's just I'll make up an example. My mother didn't love me, or my mother was cruel and abusive to me, or my mother favored my brothers and not me, right? And
mhm,
so now we end up going through life believing we're not worthy. And so either we spend our entire adulthood trying to prove we are worthy. And when you're proving something, you can't be authentic, you can't be real because you've got a point you have to make. And so everything, whether it's conscious or not, everything about you is overworking, overdoing, over whatever in order to prove your worth. If you already dealt with that wound and you realize that had nothing to do with you, perhaps your mom had enough love to give to 4 children, but she had 6 and she was burnt out and had nothing left to give the younger 2 or the middle 2, whatever the case may be. It wasn't about you. You happened to be one that landed in that spot, the younger or the middle or whatever it is. And then you
mm,
realize you've got more than enough worth. And then you have the ability to start exploring so much more about you that you've not noticed because you were so busy trying to prove your worth. When you don't have to, you can sit back in business as a leader and say, wait a minute, I realize when I look back over my work history now, in my companies, I've always exceeded what my expectations were for me. In my
mhm,
company, I always found that my leaders believed in me, that my leaders gave me more and more responsibility because I was very good at what I did, or I was very good at problem solving, or I was very good at whatever the strength, your strength is. And when that's the case, you're no longer living in the impact of that wound from your childhood. What you're doing is you're now in relationship with yourself. You've healed that wound. Not that you've forgotten about it, but you no longer let that wound impact your life.
mm,
And so now you can recognize you've got great value, which is why you've succeeded the way you have. And when you start owning that, you find that you start reaching higher. You start having permission to have even more ambition. You have permission to have a far greater energetic footprint, to have greater impact and influence in your life or in the world. You have a far better, um, more freedom to bring creative thought into your organization to perhaps come up with different products or different ways to use different products or different ways to create a healthier team or to create a healthier culture in your organization. Because now you're not focused on a wound that you had. You're now healthy and present in your life with all of you is present. And you now have the ability to really change the organization you're working for or your own organization if you own it, because there's much more freedom, there's much more aliveness within you.
I agree. I agree. But- and this is so relevant because team, they sometimes mirror their leaders' unspoken wounds as well. Um, and so, is it safe to say, Dr. Dorothy, that business culture is a reflection of internal conflict, maybe within the leader themselves, or maybe among the team members or within the team members?
Oh, it will be. It will be. Which is why it's so important to bring somebody in if the team is having issues to help the team. Sometimes it's one person on the team who doesn't really fit the culture of the team, and unfortunately, many companies hire people because of their skill set without
Mhm.
assessing will they fit the culture of this company. So you have to have people who fit the culture, which means the company has to know the culture it wants. And does this person fit the culture? And if they fit the because if let's just say your company's culture is the customer is always right. And then you hire somebody who is a great technician, but who believes the customer is a pain in the bottom. The customers are too demanding and they never know what's going on. Now you've got somebody who isn't going to be really working in alignment with everybody else and they're not going to fit in. And there's going to be a lot of antagonism. Then you're going to get divisiveness within the team and it doesn't work because then the issues show up all over the place. And so
Mm.
it's really looking at, do we all match the culture of what this organization is about? Um, when the team, we all have issues and we all came from human parents that were limited. We are all human beings who are limited, but our issues don't need to affect our lives. We can deal with them so that their impact is minimal. If we don't
Yep.
deal with them, their impact is massive. So that's really up to us.
Mm, right. It is up to us. And also, you have authored a book that speaks to spiritual first aid. Um, so, uh, what key takeaways you would like our listeners who will be, let's say, going through the book to take away, if, especially about business, and for most of the entrepreneurs?
If you go to my website, askdrdorothy.com, I have a leadership self assessment tool. It's free. You can take it. It takes about 20 minutes. It's a questionnaire, and you'll get immediately an understanding of the type of leader you are. Are you a team leader? Are you a visionary leader? Are you a thought leader? Are you an organizational leader? And you can come to understand the type of leader you are, what your strengths are, what your limits are, and also take a look at how you hold your stress. All of that will be shown to you. And my third book, Your Soul Sings, Your Body Dances, really talks about personalities and how they impact our work. I've also got several books there on my website that deal with one of the the last book I wrote was Forging Ahead by Taking a Step Back.
Hmm.
The book before that was Real Women Change the World, Letting the Good Girl Die so the Real Woman can Live. and it addresses the need for many women in business to work so hard at being considered good and being liked that they betray the gifts they really could bring to the organization because they don't want to appear to be too much, when in fact, they've got so much to offer, so much that could make that organization so much healthier and so much more successful if they gave themselves permission to be real and express the gifts that they really have to bring to the table. So there are several books there that deal with business, and some deal with personal growth, and some deal with health.
Wow. I'll make sure to add all the details in the show notes, Dr. Dorothy. And um, uh, before we wrap up, uh, if our listeners they would also like to connect with you, what will be the best way?
My email is Dorothy at askdrdorothy.com. DOROTHY at ASKDRDOROTHY. And they could send me an email at any point in time, or they could connect with me on LinkedIn and connect with me through LinkedIn. Either one of
Wonderful.
those would work beautifully.
Great. I'll make sure to add the links and the details once again in the show notes. And Dr. Dorothy, really such an insightful, grounded, real world application worth of conversation this was. So, thank you so much for reminding us that business isn't just about profit margins or numbers, it's about people, purpose, and healing the hidden layers that definitely shape our behavior. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
So, to all the listeners out there, if you found today's episode thought provoking, don't forget to connect with Dr. Dorothy and check out her assessment, check out her website. Just refer to the show notes along with this episode. And also, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. And most importantly, overall, consider this: what unseen emotional patterns might be influencing the way you lead? So, with this question, I wrap up this episode of BizBlend. Until next time, keep blending strategy with soul right here with me, your host, Sana. Thank you.